Hello, everybody. So in the previous video, we went over two examples of solving equations that had multiple steps. There were more than just one step. The first example, we used our inverse operations to solve. The second example, we also used our inverse operations to solve, but we had to set up the equation by using the distributive property to get it looking like an equation we have seen before. In this video, we are going to go even more crazy. Okay, so here are the two equations that we are going to solve in this video. This first one looks crazy, but the first step, combining like terms, is going to be really helpful in this one. In the fourth example, you will notice we have equations on both sides of the variable, or I'm sorry, on both sides of the equal sign. So I'll show you kind of how we can still solve for x, because x, even though it's on both sides of the equation, is still going to be the same thing. It's going to represent the same value. So I'll show you what we can do. So let's look at number 3. The first step when we solve any equation is we want to combine our like terms. And in this particular problem, we have many like terms. So I see, for instance, this term has an x with it. 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 You can kind of think about this minus x. This is the same thing as like minus 1x. We don't have, we just have one constant and we have one solution. So what we can do is we can combine all of these x's into one term. So what I particularly like to do when I have multiple like terms is if some of them are negative, I like to combine my negatives, and then I like to combine my positives, and then I'll combine the positive and negative together. So if you look, like we have negative 4x and minus x, those are like the two negative terms. And then we have 5x and 6x. Those are the positive like terms. So if I combine those, negative 4x minus x, or minus 1x, I'm going to go farther in the negative. So that's minus 5x. And then 5x plus 6x, that's 11x. So I'm going to put plus 11x plus 10 equals 100. So you can see I've kind of simplified my equation down to this by combining like terms. However, I still have these two terms left that I can combine. Negative 5x plus 11x, I'm just going to add the coefficients. So negative 5 plus 11, that is positive 6. And we're going to keep the x attached to it. So we have 6x plus 10 equals 100. That is much more manageable. So I'm going to go ahead and solve it up here. So 6x plus 10 equals 100. So since I've combined my like terms, the next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of my constant. I'm going to use the inverse operation. So we're adding, so the inverse would mean we're going to subtract using the subtraction property of equality. So if I do this, I am left with 6x equals 100 minus 10, which is 90. And now to get x by itself, I'm going to do the opposite of what's being done with x. So get rid of this best friend. I'm going to do division. That's the opposite of what's going on. And 90 divided by 6 is 15. So that means x is equal to 15. So this giant equation, we were able to figure out x is equal to 15. And if I went back and plugged in 15 for every x that's here in the equation, and if I set that up and I solved it like a PEMDAS problem, I should get 100 if I solve kind of what's going on this side of the equation when I go back and plug in 15. Okay? What's going to happen with this equation is we are going to attempt, like essentially, we're going to try to get our variables on one side of the equation, and then we need to get our constants on the other side of the equation. So we're just going to kind of move some things around by using those property of equalities, so that way we can get all the x's on one side of the equation, or all the variables on one side of the equation, and then the constants on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the problem. So 5x plus 12 equals x minus 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract x from both sides of the equation. That way I'm essentially moving it over here. 5x minus x is 4x plus 12 equals negative 8. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move 12 to the other side so I can get x by itself. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract.